We're in the Endgame now.
And so we are. Hey guys, Mike here. So today, I'm here to talk to you about Avengers Endgame. Now, normally for my reviews, I try to keep them as spoiler-free as possible, so you can probably watch it before you go see the movie, so you can make up your mind as to whether or not to go see it. However, for this review, because there's so much to talk about this movie, and because I don't normally do spoiler reviews, I'm going to make this one as spoilery as possible. I'm going to talk about as much stuff as I can, as much as I can remember, and as much as I do want to talk about. So, if you haven't seen the movie, then click off this video, go watch the movie, which you already should have done by this point, then come back to this review. So with that, let's finally talk about Avengers Endgame, and let's get started, shall we?
Whatever it takes.
So, in Avengers Endgame, it's been nearly a month since Thanos snapped his fingers and wiped out half of all life in the universe. As the world tries to recover from what Thanos has done, the Avengers make one last-ditch attempt to try and find Thanos so they can undo the snap. Unfortunately, Thanos has destroyed all of the Infinity Stones, and with no way to bring everyone back, everyone just has to try and move on. We cut to 5 years in the future where some people have managed to move on and other people haven't. However, after a series of events, Ant-Man finally manages to get himself out of the quantum realm where he's been sucked since the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp. However, for Ant-Man, it hasn't been 5 years since the snap, it's only been 5 hours. So, because of this, he hypothesizes that because time moves differently in the quantum realm, that maybe they might be able to exploit some loopholes within the quantum realm to try and travel forward and backwards in time. So, he enlists the help of the remaining Avengers to try and make this happen. So, the remaining Avengers come together to devise a plan of where they need to go in the past to get each of the Infinity Stones to bring them back to the present so they can undo the snap. And so we have Avengers Endgame. Now, I've been a massive fan of the MCU since the first Iron Man movie came out when I was 14 years old. So now, after 11 years and 22 movies, we finally have the movie that this has all been building up to. And now the real question we have to ask ourselves is, did Avengers Endgame live up to the hype? And I can safely say that it definitely did. This movie was amazing. But before I actually start gushing over this movie, saying everything that I loved about it, I am going to talk about a couple of things that I was a little less impressed with. So, first of all, I imagine that this is going to be the thing that everyone is going to probably talk about, and it's definitely the pacing of this one. Because this is an over 3-hour-long movie, so it's going to be hard for them to try and keep a consistently exciting pace. And I'd say probably mainly in the second act, that's where the momentum starts to slow down a bit. Not necessarily saying that there's anything boring going on or that what we're seeing isn't great. It does feel that it isn't moving as fast as, say, Infinity War. Honestly, even though I did kind of think this myself, I do have to kind of ask people, what were you expecting? Were you expecting it just to be action-packed non-stop for the whole 3 hours? That would just be absolutely ludicrous and you wouldn't have much of a time to actually do any character development or have any great scenes of dialogue that this movie definitely had. But still, I can admit that there definitely was a pacing issue. And I'd say the other thing was that Thanos was definitely less of a presence in this one. Because Infinity War is definitely Thanos' movie. He's the hero of his story and it's all about what he's trying to do and how he's trying to successfully achieve his goal. Now, I'm not saying that Thanos is a good guy, but he's definitely the protagonist of his movie. Whereas in this movie, Thanos is more of an afterthought and definitely more of a force to be reckoned with than an actual fully fleshed out character. But the reason I can forgive this is because that this one is definitely the Avengers movie. It's all about what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve. And another reason I can kind of forgive the lack of Thanos in this movie is because I really do think of Infinity War and Endgame as one whole movie. Maybe in the future we'll get some kind of super edit where they put both the movies together and it's this 5.5-hour epic. Now, my final major critique, I think I probably have to look up a bit more before I stay firm on it. But for now, I think I'll just mention it. It's because of the timestamps that they give on each one of the places that they go to in the past. Now, the first one being that the timestamp that they give for the Battle of New York, 2012. Now, that's when the movie came out, but from Spider-Man Homecoming, they kind of make it seem like it happened in 2010, not 2012. I mean, there's probably a video out there where someone does explain it and it does make sense, or the writers have done an interview where they do explain it and it does make sense. But when I was watching it, I was a bit confused because I was there just like, have they settled on a time frame? Have they settled when these things are set? And it wasn't anything major. It didn't really take me out of it. I just thought that it was a bit strange that they've kind of established something beforehand and they're still kind of unsure as to when it is. I mean, it wasn't anything major for me. I just thought that it was something that I found a bit weird. So, with my critiques out of the way, let's talk about the things that I loved about this one. Now, I'd honestly say that everyone gives the performance of their life in this movie. Especially, I'd say, the original 6 Avengers. They've all gone through so much in their movies, and it's finally nice to see a resolution to all that. Now, I know a lot of people felt that Captain America really got sidelined in Infinity War, but that is definitely not the case. He is definitely one of the people who really pushes this story forward. It was just great to see how far he's come and how much he sticks to his ideals. Because throughout the whole MCU, he has really been tried and tested. What with his faith in the military being shattered, his faith in S.H.I.E.L.D. being shattered, his faith in people, and just everything that he's gone through, all boiling down to this. And it also can't be understated how great Robert Downey Jr. was in this. Now, for the longest time, Tony Stark hasn't had anything that he really cares about, except for, say, Pepper. It was just great to see him actually have something, you know, a wife, a daughter, something that he can really hold on to, except for just fighting for the greater good. He's fighting for his own real personal reasons. And at first, understandably, he's unwilling to help the Avengers because it may affect what he already has. But being a true hero as he is, he decides to help out the Avengers, who are basically his second family. Now, the snap took an emotional toll on absolutely everyone, but it was just great to see someone go through physical changes because of the damage that it caused. And again, like in most everything he's in, Chris Hemsworth really shines. And as well, like everyone else, he's just trying to move on, no matter how much physical and emotional damage it's causing him. And like everyone else, he really goes through some great trials of his character. And what I've said about these 3 really does carry over to pretty much everyone else in the movie. And not only that as well, it was just great to see a lot of characters returning, because despite what they said about Infinity War, not actually everyone was there. I mean, obviously you've got Hawkeye and Ant-Man, but the one I was really happy with was seeing Valkyrie make a return, because I was really hoping that they didn't just kill her off screen or something like that. But no, they brought her back and she was amazing, just like she was in Thor Ragnarok. But not only that, they also treated us to bringing back Korg as well, who was definitely one of the standouts from Thor Ragnarok. I mean, the guy only has like 5 minutes of screen time, and every single line he has just leaves you in stitches. I mean, what he's saying isn't really all that funny, it's just the way that he says it that really brings a laugh out of everyone. Whether they'll bring him back in the future is a bit unclear. All I can say is that it was just great to see him again. And I'm actually so glad that they didn't skip over a lot of the devastation that was caused. I really thought they were just going to kind of like mope around for about like 5 minutes and then just go straight into solving the situation. But instead they really linger on what the snap actually did to everyone. I mean, we all love to see the heroes rise, but we don't know what to really do with ourselves when we see them fall. But it's about how these people get back up once they've been knocked down that really makes us root for them. And they really earn this admiration off us. Because one of the great scenes among the many that were in this one came on Vormir with Hawkeye and Black Widow. Because the 2 of them were tasked with finding the Soul Stone. Because like Thanos and Gamora were told by Red Skull, they had to give up something they love in order to get the Soul Stone. So the 2 of them realized pretty much instantly that one of them is going to have to sacrifice themselves in order to get the Soul Stone. And this scene was just done so well because for the whole time, I just didn't know who was going to die or who was going to give their own life. And it really looks like it's going one way, then they completely flip the script and it's then the other one who's going to do it until you finally get to the resolution and you know for a fact who is going to die. And it just saddened me, like I imagine it did most everyone else out there, that Black Widow was the one who had to give her life in order to get the Soul Stone. Honestly, either one would have had the emotional impact, but the one who ended up dying was Black Widow. And it was just an amazing send-off for one of the first characters established in the MCU. And not only did it take an emotional toll on the audience, it was just great to see what it really did to the Avengers. Now, as for the whole time travel aspect of this movie, I don't think any one person has one definitive idea about how time travel works. At the very least, there's probably like 3 rational ideas about how time travel works. But the one that Endgame goes with is this whole you can't affect the past because it now becomes your present, so anything you do is what you were always meant to do. Because they've already established it like this, you can really just sit back and enjoy what you're watching instead of thinking about, oh, how's that going to affect this or how is it going to affect that? Because other than bringing forward the Infinity Stones, they also bring forward something else as well. Mjolnir. We all thought we saw the last of it in Ragnarok, but because Thor is basically awesome, he decides to bring it back to the present or future or, I don't know. So after great cost, the Avengers bring the stones to the present and finally undo the snap. But when they think everything's all hunky-dory and everything like that, Thanos finds a way of bringing himself to their present. Not only does he bring himself, but he brings his whole entire army as well, leading us into the real Endgame, which leads to one of the greatest spectacles in all of cinematic history. The Avengers versus Thanos' army. And there are just too many things to name in this over half-hour plus sequence to really kind of talk about in one video. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of my favourites. Now, we all remember this scene, right?
Go, Steve, no pressure. Come on, Cap.
Nothing.
And honestly, I thought that this was as close as we were ever going to get to this. But because, like I said, Thor is awesome, we get to see one of my now new favourite scenes in the whole entire MCU. We finally get to see Captain America lifting Mjolnir, proving once and for all that he is worthy of its power. This was the part where I had the biggest nerdgasm ever. And honestly, after we lifted up, I thought we were just going to get one scene where he just whacks him around the head or something like that. But instead, we get a brilliantly choreographed action scene with Captain America using both his shield and Mjolnir with such insane precision that you'd actually think you're watching a cutscene from a video game. But then, just when all hope seemed lost and Thanos actually looked like he was going to win again, Doctor Strange brings everyone who got snapped or otherwise to the battlefield. And then begins the ultimate climax of this movie. The big showdown between army versus army. And absolutely everyone gets a moment to shine in this battle. To the point where, and I'm not exaggerating here, if you blink, you'll miss it. But something I actually did find funny. I went with quite a large group to this movie, and one of my friends who pretty much sat more or less on the opposite end of the theatre to me, he is one of the biggest Spider-Man fans, and every time that Spider-Man did basically anything, all I heard him doing was just going, woo, and clicking his fingers or something like that. It was just absolutely hilarious. But then we get to one of the more emotional scenes of the movie. Just as it seemed that Thanos was actually going to win again because he manages to get a hold of the Infinity Stones again and actually snap everyone out of existence, Iron Man manages to get him off him and snap Thanos' army away after delivering one of the most badass lines in all the MCU. But because it required so much energy, it ended up killing Iron Man, the godfather of the MCU. And honestly, there was probably no better way to send off this legend of cinema. After saying he didn't want to risk anything for this mission, he's the one who really gave up everything so that they could win. And this was a scene that I'm not ashamed to admit that I absolutely bawled my eyes out watching. And I don't think since Hacksaw Ridge have I honestly cried so much, because this scene was just done so well. It was amazingly acted, executed, everything about it was just perfect, and the ultimate send-off for the great invincible Iron Man. And then just when you think the movie hasn't tugged on your heartstrings enough, we get this scene with Captain America. So, Captain America has been tasked with sending the Infinity Stones back to where they came from. It was supposed to be a simple job. He goes there and he comes back 5 seconds later. But instead we get a great resolution to this amazing character. Captain America has never felt like he truly belonged in the 21st century. So, seeing an opportunity after all his hard work, he decides to do something for himself and finally be happy. But just before we actually see the resolution of that, we see a passing of the torch, as it were. Captain America, as an old man, finally giving over his shield to Falcon to become the new Captain America. Now, for the longest time, I knew it was either going to be Falcon or Bucky, because that's how it goes in the comic. But the scene was just, again, done so amazingly well, and it really felt earned. And then we finally close on the scene of Captain America finally having that dance with Peggy Carter. And then, roll credits. Honestly, guys, this has been a hard one to talk about because I can feel myself welling up just talking about it. I absolutely love movies. They are the center of my universe, but no franchise has really hit home like the MCU. Pretty much from the characters, the settings, the stories, everything really resonates with you. And some people make all these movies formulaic or unoriginal, but they are far from it. These movies teach us about friendship, hope, and how we can all become better people. And it's been such a privilege to experience these in my lifetime. Something that at a young age, I never thought I'd get to see. Because no franchise has managed to do what the MCU have. Other ones have tried and failed, even before they've actually barely got their first movie out. I mean, when Kevin Feige first brought this idea forward, everyone laughed him out of the room, said it couldn't be done, but he proved them wrong. He stuck to his guns and gave us one of the greatest cinematic universes ever put to film, or probably ever will be put to film. And because of this, I thank Kevin Feige, I thank Stan Lee, I thank all the actors who have brought these characters to life, and I thank the audience for actually sticking with these movies and making them happen. And right now, this is probably the first time since 2008 where I'm unsure about what's going to happen with the MCU. I mean, I know we got Spider-Man Far From Home coming up in the next couple of months, but beyond that, nothing's certain. We don't know who the big bad is. We don't know what the overarching story is. So, right now, we're in this golden period of not knowing what's going to come next. And much like with the Infinity Saga, I cannot wait to see what Marvel brings us. Overall, guys, though this movie is not perfect, I absolutely loved it. It was everything that I wanted it to be and more. This movie had great acting, great direction, great writing, great cinematography. Everything about it was just amazing to see on screen. And I know for a fact I'm going to see this movie again, so I'll probably find things that I didn't see the first time. But as it stands right now, this is probably one of my all-time favourite movies. Probably not necessarily the best one in the MCU, but definitely probably one of the better things I've seen this year so far. So now, that brings me to whether or not you guys should go and see it. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm telling you to go see this one, because this is just such a defining point in cinema that it'd be hard to miss it. I don't know how you're going to possibly not go see this movie. Everyone at Marvel has put in such hard work over the last 11 years that it would probably be just an insult not to go see this movie and see how it all ends. So, in a nutshell, go see Avengers Endgame. Okay guys, that's my review for Avengers Endgame. If you've seen it, what did you think about it? And what's your favourite movie in the MCU? Whatever it is, drop it in the comments below. And until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!